Thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet Voice You Know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by BASF, where the performance of Veltima fungicide can take your best results even farther. Powered by soy biodiesel. Later today, I'll make an appearance at the Crawford County Fair. We'll be there all thanks to Nature's premium liquid fertilizer since 1946. And don't forget, tomorrow, July 15th, the Dairy Summit at the Ashland Wayne County Dairy Program up there. Check it out online for more details. It's open to everyone. Wayne.osu.edu. And yes, it does include the Twilight Tour. Well, the World Ag Supply and Demand estimate numbers came out on Friday. The domestic estimates were bullish for corn, slightly bearish for soybeans, and neutral for wheat, said DTN lead analyst Rhett Montgomery. World ending stock estimates from USDA were neutral to slightly bullish for corn, neutral to slightly bearish for soybeans, and moderately bullish for wheat, he said. Now for corn, the USDA forecast for 25-26 crop at 15.705 billion bushels, down 115 million bushels based on a yield forecast of 181 bushels per acre. Planted acres were lowered 100,000 acres to 95.2 million acres, matching the June 30th crop report. Harvested acres are projected at 86.8 million, down 600,000 acres from the June estimate. USDA lowered beginning stocks from the new crop 25 million bushels to 1.34 billion bushels. On the demand side, the forecast for the 25-26 corn crop projects total feed and residual use at 5.85 billion bushels, down 50 million from last month. Ethanol use is pegged at 5.5 billion bushels. Total use is forecast at 12.735 billion bushels, down 50 million bushels. Corn exports for new crop are projected at 2.675 billion bushels, the same as in June. The farm gate price for 25-26 crop is projected at $4.20 a bushel, the same as last month. In soybeans, USDA integrated its 83.4 million acre soybean planting estimate into its supply and demand forecast, resulting in a 5 million bushel decline in production to 4.335 million bushels. Yield was left unchanged at 52.5 bushels per acre. The forecast for the 25-26 soybean ending stocks increased by 15 million bushels to 310 million bushels, within the range of the pre-report expectations. Along with lower production, USDA increased crush forecast by 50 million bushels to 2.54 million bushels, while cutting exports by 70 million bushels. Total use declined to 4.395 million bushels, and the national average farm gate price dropped 15 cents to $10.10 per bushel. Globally, it looks like production in Brazil and Argentina were left unchanged at 175 million metric tons and 48.5 million metric tons, respectively. In the wheat trade, USDA increased its estimate of all 25-26 wheat production to 1.929 billion bushels, up from 1.921 in June. USDA estimates ending stocks of 890 million bushels, down from 898 million bushels in June, and ending stocks for old crop wheat increased to 851 million bushels from the June forecast of 841. Total use in new crop wheat estimates at 2.009 billion bushels is up from 1.984 billion bushels in June, while exports increased to 850 million bushels from 825 million bushels last month. The wheat farm gate price were left unchanged at $5.40 from the June figure. Area harvested for grain or seed is expected to total 2.06 million acres, unchanged from the acreage report released on June 30th, but up 1% from 2024. Today's weather brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
Some lingering showers in Ohio to start your Monday. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at your forecast update. This is the aftermath of what came through central and southern Indiana and the Ohio Valley in general yesterday. So I-70 southward is basically where we see moisture here this morning into midday. I won't rule out another few hundredths to maybe a quarter of an inch out of this. And northern part of the state should just see a mix of clouds and sunshine through the entire day. Everybody's dry tomorrow. Good sunshine. Fairly nice setup. Watching another cluster of shower and thunderstorm action come out of the Missouri Valley and into the Ohio Valley tomorrow night into Wednesday, but it seems to die out a little farther to our west. Wednesday, mid-morning to midday, we see showers and storms activating over most of the Buckeye State again. And then through Thursday and Friday, we see on again, off again moisture. I think a Thursday and Friday precipitation only has about 60% coverage on any given day. The Wednesday activity could be about 80. Really what we're seeing here is everybody in Ohio picking up some form of moisture this week before Friday is done. Over the weekend, Saturday looks mostly dry. Sunday can see some hit and miss scattered showers and thunderstorms, particularly in the western part of the state. I won't rule out some of those being strong to severe. Cooler, drier air in to start next week, Monday the 21st. We keep that into early the 22nd before our next frontal boundary comes in and gives rain again. So if all of this plays out, and if we end up with coverage overlapping a little bit, we should minimize our dry holes. I think a large part of the state has good, timely precipitation over the next 10 days to 2 weeks. Should be right on time for crop growth and development in most cases. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Joining me is Luke Crumley, Director of Public Policy and Sustainability for Ohio Corn and Wheat. Luke, what's happening in the E15 ethanol discussion arena?
Governor DeWine has continued to be at the table and driving this conversation with 7 other governors, forcing the conversation because no one wants a state-by-state or region-by-region approach to fuel. We want consistency. We want low prices everywhere. That's really important that Governor DeWine has stayed engaged in that fight, and we are leveraging their voices. Folks need to understand there are other macro trends happening. While we've been focused on the Ohio budget and on budget reconciliation, there are 49 other states, one of whom just took a really big action that we may not have expected. And if you've never heard of Gavin Newsom in California and thought positive things about him, there's some reason to celebrate, because in the California state budget that just got passed, they included millions of dollars for programmatic support to allow CARB, the California Air Resources Board, to move toward adoption of E15 in California. And that's huge. California is already our biggest market for flex fuel because of their air quality standards. This new opportunity really being pursued for consumer prices, huge opportunity here, huge win from Governor Newsom and his team and the state legislature in California. If we open up California, which is the only state where you can't buy E15 at all, it's the only state, that is a huge market opportunity. Really good news for corn farmers. There's still obviously work to be done. They have to work through the rules process still. But that is the beginning of a really great market opportunity for corn growers.
And thank you, Luke Crumley, Director of Public Policy and Sustainability for Ohio Corn and Wheat. Back with more after this.
Attention construction pros. Purple Wave Auction brings quality equipment to your fingertips. Join our bi-weekly online auctions featuring dozers, excavators, loaders, and more. We provide detailed listings, photos, and seller contact info. Inspect online or in person. With our no reserve policy, every item sells to the highest bidder. Visit purplewave.com today and see why informed builders choose Purple Wave. Transparent processes, real deals. Your next great purchase awaits. purplewave.com.
Be aware, ticks are there. As you head outdoors, remember to avoid tall grass, wear light-colored full-coverage clothing, and use EPA-registered repellent. Be sure to thoroughly check for ticks after you head in for the day. If you find any ticks, remove them carefully with tweezers and watch for symptoms such as fever, headache, or rash. For more information on ticks and tick bite prevention, head over to ohio.gov/ticks.
The Mexican market offers continued opportunity for U.S. farmers, ranchers, and food processors to further expand sales across the agricultural spectrum. Mexico is a top market for primary U.S. grains and oilseeds, as well as consumer-oriented groceries. An expanding population coupled with continued economic growth and geographic proximity makes Mexico an attractive market for U.S. food and agriculture producers. Mexico was the top market for U.S. agriculture exports in 2024, with shipments valued at $30.2 billion. Consumer-oriented products, including meat and meat products, dairy, processed food, fruits, and beverages, constituted nearly 50% of that trade, with a value at $14.6 billion. Bulk commodity exports to Mexico accounted for 1/3 of all agricultural shipments, valued at $10 billion, led by corn, soybeans, wheat, rice, and pulses. Intermediate product exports such as sweeteners, soy meal, distillers' grains, and planting seeds accounted for the remainder and were valued at $5.6 billion. On Friday, the World Ag Supply and Demand Report shared mixed news for cattle and beef markets of 2025, according to DTN livestock analyst Shaylee Stewart. Beef production for 25 was decreased by 170 million pounds as packers are expected to run slower chain speeds in the second half of the year, Stewart said. Steer prices for the remaining quarter of 25 were unchanged with last month's projection, and the first quarter prices of 26 were unchanged as well. In pork production, it was increased as processing speeds and carcass weights are expected to increase in the second half of the year. Pork production for 25 is now anticipated to be 28,041 million pounds, which is 45 million pounds more than last month's estimate. Hog prices were improved from last month's report, as hog prices in the third quarter of 25 are now expected to average $76. That's up $1 from last month. Today's market analysis is brought to you by the Louis Dreyfus Company. Excited to be building the newest state-of-the-art soybean crush facility in Upper Sandusky, Ohio. Want marketing information on your soybeans to LDC? Call 574-566-2113. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets finished lower on Friday. As we take a look back, what was the main story? Well, everybody wanted to talk about the WASDE report, and the WASDE report did almost what folks thought it should do. Here's the issue, though. The report should have been a little bit friendly on corn, and we got absolutely no bump there. And then over the weekend, with President Trump announcing 30% tariffs on Mexico and the EU, this is probably setting up to not help our demand structure in any way, shape, or form. Let's talk about the WASDE first. The USDA balance sheet adjustments leaned positive for corn, neutral for soy and wheat. Ag futures on Friday didn't do anything but move lower. The market is completely unfazed by the tightening of the corn balance sheet. The favorable weather is one thing and the demand is the other. We'll talk weather in a little bit, but let's talk about the details. Corn exports were pushed up a full 100 million bushels. That better aligns with the pace analysis up to this point. There was a trimming of feed and residual use by 75 million bushels. Ending stocks were cut 25 million bushels. Definitely a positive report overall for corn. 24-25 Chinese corn imports were trimmed another 2 million metric tons. The Chinese imports are in the 25-26 column completely unchanged. Old crop soybean stocks, ending stocks unchanged at 350 million bushels. Exports were hiked a little bit. Residual disappearance trimmed just a little bit. However, the 25-26 soy crush was raised 50 million bushels. That was larger than what was projected. Biofuel production is the main reason. Exports were lowered 70 million on weak crop sales to date. On the Chinese side, 25-26 soy imports were left unchanged at 112 million metric tons. Given the trade stories out there, I look for that to be decreased here in the months ahead. U.S. hard red winter wheat market will be the most amply supplied in a while. New crop HRW stocks pegged at 431 million bushels versus the 398 in a 24-25. It's the highest since the 1920 crop year. So not a lot of good on the WASDE report for corn soybeans and wheat. Corn was good, but weather still projecting a huge crop domestically. I'm Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Today's market is brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Overnight at the open, December corn down 3 1/4 at $4.09. March down 3 at $4.26. November beans down 6 at $10.0125. January down 6 at $10.18. September wheat down 2 1/4 at $5.42 3/4. December down 2 at $5.63 1/2. In livestock yesterday, August cattle closed up $2.97 at $222.20. August lean hogs $104.67, down $1.55. September feeder cattle up $4.17 at $325.40. This is the Ohio AgNet.